saying, I want you to win the World Series for these reasons, for these people in my life.
I see where you're going with it.
And it turned into this, before the internet went viral, it turned into a viral sensation. They had 50,000 people write in letters and saying what was important, why they wanted the team to win, paying tribute to people who had passed away, people who would never be able to see the Red Sox in the World Series because it had been 86 years at that point. So I figured that I would just do my own here for the Bills. I was going to wait, and, if they make that big game later on in the year that Marlon wouldn't mention, but I'm going to do it at the start of the playoff run. And then maybe if anybody else on here, who's watching or sits on YouTube or follows us on Twitter, ever wants to, do their own, or if Don next week, want to put one together. So I wrote a few notes, and I kind of wanted to just address it to Dion Dawkins, who had that amazing letter yesterday to the city of Buffalo.
Oh, that was cool.
And then that hype video that the Bills did last night, which made my wife not fall asleep. So this is like kind of addressed to the team and to anybody in the organization that has like a direct impact on the game, the outcome. Yeah. So, I would just ask, for me and for the community, that the Bills win it first and foremost for 54, 78, 12, and 83. When I was thinking about putting this together, those four are like the Mount Rushmore of my childhood.
Sure. Yeah.
Nothing would move me more. Nothing would make me happy as a fan as in September coming out of the tunnel would be those four in uniform with either the trophy or some semblance of AFC championships from the 90s or whatever. The next group of people I would love the Bills to win the Super Bowl for would be guys like Steve Tasker, Chris Hale, John Davis, Pete Metzelaars, and all of the lesser-known guys on the 90s team that went through either one Super Bowl loss, 2, 3, all four of the Super Bowl losses.
We've had guys on our program, man. They still care so much. The names you just mentioned have been on with us earlier.
All those guys carry around Buffalo as a badge of honor, and I think it would mean the world to them.
They're ambassadors still,
I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for Coach Levy, who's 97 years old and absolutely deserves to win the Super Bowl. Coach Levy met me when I was a wide-eyed 22-year-old intern in the merchandise department and couldn't have been any nicer. Yeah. He could have big-timed me. He could have, told me to buzz off, kid, and he gave me 5 minutes of his time, a smile, and every single time I saw him in the building after that, he remembered my name. I want them to win for the John Butler and the late Ralph Wilson as well. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for Scott Norwood, for Ronnie Harmon, for Thurman Thomas's missing helmet in Super Bowl 26. Like Von Miller said at the beginning of the season, burn it all. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for the late Van Miller, who I had the pleasure of sitting next to on the plane rides. And boy, a plane ride with Van to Seattle was an experience before iPods and headphones, but nobody loved the Bills more. And if they ever do win the Super Bowl, I will be a little bit sad and bittersweet that he was not able to call it. And obviously, for John Murphy as well, who's recovering. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for guys like Woody, who was on our podcast, Henry, who was on our podcast, even for guys like Lieutenant Boiler, guys who worked at the Bills who you never know, never heard of, who, in the 90s, when I was there, 2000s, weren't paid all that well. It wasn't, you weren't overly paid at the Bills if you were support staff. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for Del Reed, for LaShawn German, and all of the guys on social media who give more than they get from the team, from the guys who start all of these, social movements of giving in the Bills Mafia and the incredible things that they do. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for the victims of the top shooting, the people who lost their lives in the blizzard, in that New Year's Eve fire, and anybody who could use a pick-me-up after a year around here that obviously everybody knows is really hard.
That video did a nice job of incorporating those elements.
I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for my friends Josh Knight and Mark Gleason and my dad's friend Hank Finkowski, guys who go to the stadium every single week, have tailgate setups. They've been doing since the Bills have sucked. They do it in good weather, in bad weather. Josh and Mark have a bus that they park right behind Prohibition, and they are there rain or shine, night or day, 7 a.m., 11 a.m., night game, whatever. The dedication to the team and going through the entire drought, to me, was incredible. Hank Finkowski has been a season ticket holder for probably 45 years, and I'm sure he represents thousands of guys and girls who've been doing it forever. He rocks a Kavika Mitchell jersey sometimes to the stadium. it would mean he's advancing in age, and it would mean the world to him and his family for the Bills to win Super Bowl.
I want to mention I worked with Mitchell. He was a great guy. Whatever reason you have his jersey,
I want the Bills to win Super Bowl for my friends Pat Walsh and Eric Vinkowski, who take my wife to the games and in the club seat every week. And I know how much it would mean to guys like them and everybody who's a fan in my age range, and everybody who has been through the Super Bowl years, either as a kid or a teenager and has given up. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for Eric Fisher, Greg Thompson, Aaron Quinn, and all the great guys that we've met at One, all of the other social media bloggers and sites that have popped up, give time and effort, dedication to something that doesn't pay all that well at all, but they love the team, they love the city, and they love the community. A couple more here. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for my mother-in-law, Sally Zajac, and for all of the people who've lost somebody that they used to watch the games.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law is 81. She's a widower. She used to watch the games with my father-in-law, Bob. She still scuzzes the TV every time Patrick Mahomes comes on. Scuzzing meaning wishing ill or bad luck. She hates the coach of the Miami Dolphins, and she watches and I know would want her husband to see the Bills win the Super Bowl. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for my boys, Jackson and Tice, who are 10. I kind of want them to experience what I have not been able to experience. And when I say that when the Red Sox won in 2004, it altered my life, it really kind of did. It made me believe in things more. It made me not always think that the worst thing was going to happen. And I was able to have, it's weird to say about a football team, but I was able to have a confidence going forward that, the worst thing might not always happen. You might be able to overcome all of these adversities. So I want them to win for my boys. I have 3 more. I want them to win for my wife. Obviously, this year, the Bills Mafia Babes became, a bigger deal. And there was the whole controversy about women in football. Nobody loves the Bills more than my wife. And she tolerated meeting me at a time where I wasn't in the same position as I am now. And I really didn't care for the Bills. So she has maintained her love and her dedication throughout the 90s and throughout the drought. She is one of those people who refuses to turn a game off, even if they're up by 25 points and there's a more compelling game going on. Christine Lee told us, I want Bills to win the Super Bowl for her and for all the women in Western New York who don't get the respect and that they deserve as football fans. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for my friend over here, Gordon Lewis Purdy III. Hey, very few people know what a good person he is, how much he meant to the Bills organization. He's humble to a fault. He's not always his own best advocate, which frustrates me at times. I know the journey that he was on with the team from a young kid in the ticket office in the 80s to going through the 4 Super Bowls and not winning. He picked up the phone when I called him for an internship. He gave me nothing but respect and opportunity. He advocated for me when it came time to be promoted. He cried with me when I got fired. He also went through the entire drought and did everything that he did with integrity and with honesty. And it's a tribute to him, all the people who've been able to come on this show and willing to come on this show and talk about the Bills. When he got let go, things were a little dicey for him, and it's taken a couple years, rightfully so, to get to a place where he is now. And I'd like to think that this podcast has helped that bit. And I want the Bills to win because I feel like it would be a culmination and kind of an achievement for him, even though he's not there anymore.
I feel that. I appreciate that. I really do.
Last but not least, and selfishly, I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for me.
There you go.
And that statement, I don't think I would. I know I wouldn't have had 10, 15, 20 years ago. I was a kid just growing up right near Maine and Philly. I loved football to the point where I would take Connect 4 pieces and I would play a football game. I'm an only child. I would play a football game on the rug that I can't even describe to people how I played with the dice and Connect 4 pieces and 2 playbooks. So I was both teams. I was the offense and the defense. I would draw and design plays as a kid. I ended up interning and spending 2 years working for free at the Bills with just the hope of getting a $19,000 a year job in the merchandise or marketing department. I turned that with some luck, some hard work, and some great advocates, into the absolute job of a lifetime that I would have never even conceived of getting, that changed life. And unfortunately, that ended way too quickly, and it took me a decade to recover from it. I still lived in Buffalo. I didn't want to live in Buffalo anymore afterwards. I've told you on here how it felt like, and I know you love this, it felt like somebody was wearing the picture of your ex-wife or your ex-girlfriend on their hat, on their jacket, on their bumper sticker, on their car. Everywhere I went, I couldn't get away from the Bills.
They just love her.
At first, I hated the Bills. I was upset. I was hurt. I couldn't film them winning. I couldn't stand or tolerate the idea of them winning the Super Bowl and me not being there or not being a fan, because it meant so much to me. The four Super Bowl years were my high school years. Like, I loved this team. I loved this town. I loved this community. Thankfully, around 2017, 2018, Coach McDermott and Brandon Beane come in, just the way that they ran the organization, the fact that they got better, the fact that they're entertaining, the fact that my boys were getting older and I didn't want to be somebody who denied them the communal experience of Buffalo. My wife wore me down, watching her on New Year's Eve of 2017 cry in the living room when Tyler Boyd scored and crossed the end zone. I had no choice. I finally was able to let go a lot of the bitterness and a lot of the anger that only I was carrying. The Bills had clearly moved on from me 15 years earlier. I need to move on too. So I was able to, over the course of these last few years, really start to embrace team and to enjoy what it does for the fans and the community, and frankly, what it does for me. So for the first time in 20 years, which is a big deal, I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl. So win it for all of us, Buffalo. Go Bills.
Nothing more to add.